Amazon Games' New World MMO is finally out, and this means thousands of new players will be flooding the world of Aeternum. If you're one of these new explorers, you might find that getting started can be a bit difficult due to the sheer volume of what you can do in New Worlds' New World. With that in mind, we've put together a list of 20 tips and tricks for anyone setting sail for this new world, presented by New World. After creating your character, you'll be tossed upon the shores of Aeternum. Here, we highly recommend that you pay attention to what New World has to say. Many of the game's first missions are meant to serve as tutorials, so it's best not to rush through them or skip the dialogue being doled out by helpful NPCs. The first several hours worth of main quests in New World are more tutorials than anything else, teaching you about ends, crafting, combat, and more. It's all information that you're going to really want to pay attention to, so make sure not to skip through NPC dialogue. In between the main quests, and in some instances as a result of the main quests, you'll be tasked with completing faction missions, town board missions, and more. Basically, expect the game to reveal its systems and gameplay loop to you through various main and side quests for your character's first 10 levels. After level 12, the game's main golden path will really open up and you'll be mostly free from that point on to do what you want on Aeternum. Regardless of what you do when you first start exploring Aeternum, one thing that's worth going off the beaten path is to gather as many resources as possible. Many early quests will require resources such as flint or different types of wood and hides, and it will be extremely useful throughout your journey in the New World. Collecting these resources early on will ensure you're adequately leveling up those individual resource gathering skills, because yes, there are skill ranks for this, and you'll be very thankful you level these skills up early the more you play the game. One especially useful thing to unlock is node tracking. This can be unlocked for gathering skills, and it essentially shows an icon on your compass that highlights trackable gatherables and resources. It's a great skill to have in any gatherer's arsenal of tools. On that same note, we recommend using territory points, which are earned as you complete objectives and activities in different regions to upgrade your gathering speed when available. You could also spend these points on things like in-territory XP boosts, settlement storage upgrades, and more, but we found spending them on gathering speed upgrades to be the most helpful in the game's earlier hours. Now, let's run through a couple of quick pointers now that you're ready to explore. First off, there is in fact fall damage, but it's not too egregious. A massive fall will only take away around 10% of your total HP, and to be honest, sometimes just taking the hit at the bottom of a fall is easier, and faster, than finding the safe way down a cliffside. If you land in water though, be careful. Once your character's head is completely underwater, you'll see a breath meter appear. Unlike other games where you start losing health when you run out of air, once the 20 is depleted to 0, your character will immediately die. Early on, you'll learn about campsites. They're easy to build and extremely useful since you can not only heal at them, but also craft all kinds of tools, rations, and more. You can also set any campsite in the world as your respawn point, so if you're heading somewhere dangerous, consider making a campsite nearby. However, it's important to note that campsites cannot be built in landmark territories, so be sure to build one just outside of a landmark territory before heading in. If you don't have the resources needed to make one, simply press and hold E in front of any campsite you see in New World to register it as your respawn point. Work smarter, not harder, and by work smarter, we mean let other people do the work for you. That said, if that player leaves the game or builds a different campsite, the game will inform you that your respawn point is no longer active, so be sure to find a new one when that happens. If you're not keen to create a nearby campsite, or out of the resources required to make one, make sure to register at a guest inn in a nearby town near your objectives.
Welcome to the Regent's Rise.
This turns it into a respawn point where you can automatically respawn for no cost once an hour, and you can also use it like a free fast travel. See, in order to fast travel otherwise, you must unlock spirit shrines around the world, both in the wild and in settlements, but those cost Azoth, and the further you need to fast travel, and the more you are carrying, the more Azoth it will cost. We've never run out of it at lower levels, although we're quite sure Azoth becomes more precious later in the game, as New World is quite generous in handing it out. If you do run out though, complete some quests or close some corruption breaches, which carry a level 25 recommendation to earn more. You can avoid the use of Azoth to travel back to settlements too, by purchasing a house in a settlement you frequent often. A home you purchase in a settlement becomes an easy to use fast travel point back to that area. About 3 to 5 hours into the game, when you reach level 10, you'll be tasked with choosing one of New World's factions as your own. There are 3 to choose from and each has a different focus. The Marauders are all about combat and ruthlessness. The Covenant are your standard religious zealots, all about taking out sinners and heretics. The Syndicate is all about knowledge, both the pursuit of it and the secretive use of it to take down enemies. There isn't much difference between them mechanically, but you can get some unique cosmetics depending on who you choose to fight for. No matter which faction you're in, if a faction controls a territory you're in, expect cheaper fast travel costs, reduced taxation, and a supply cart in that territory's towns that you can store inventory items in. Go with whichever philosophy you prefer, but when choosing a faction, remember that a big part of New World is PvP combat. The game's 3 factions, which are made up of real-world players, are constantly vying for control of New World's territories. 50v50 PvP wars will take place to conquer these territories. If you want to get the most out of New World, you should really play into the game's territorial PvP aspects. However, if that's not your cup of tea, it's not required. If you don't plan to put too much into New World's PvP, consider choosing a faction already heavily in control of your server's maps, as you'll get special discounts and bonuses when in regions your faction controls. If you want to play with friends, be sure to choose the same faction as your friends. If you want to take them on in war, choose a different faction. Also, don't sweat too much over this decision, as you can easily change factions in the game's bio screen, but keep in mind that you can only swap factions once every 4 months. One more thing to note about factions is that players in different factions won't be able to join the same company. If this is important to you, consider joining the same faction as them. For those unaware of what companies are, they're essentially player-created guilds. These companies can have up to 100 players, and each has a single governor that acts as the overseer of the company. The company can progress through the game's 4 company ranks, customize their crest and faction pattern design, and more. If you're looking for friends in this game, joining a company that interests you is a great place to start. When exploring the world, keep an eye out for shiny chests, storage boxes, and crates that glow in ethereal purple and green. These can be looted for precious resources, new weapons, rations, armor, and more. Chests are everywhere in this game, seriously, so why not take advantage of the free loot? While simply exploring the New World would be nice, there are beasts and corrupted enemies aplenty who don't want you there. You'll either need to run or fight them, and spoilers, it's imperative that you pick up, understand, and get good at the game's combat. First, always keep a ranged weapon handy, be it a musket, a bow, or even a magic launching glove when in combat. They're great for taking out enemies from a distance, and they're especially helpful hunting the wildlife you'll use to craft healing and restorative items. It's important to experiment with different weapon combinations too, so you can figure out what best fits with your style of play. For example, we use our ice gauntlet at the start of any combat encounter to throw down an ice pylon that's basically an automatic ice shooting turret. Not only does this automatically damage the enemy we're trying to take down, but it grabs the enemy's attention too. Then, we run in with our rapier and do the whole slash lunge stab thing. We've discovered a number of these fun combinations that really spice up the combat. Find some that work for you. When on defense, sometimes a block won't do the trick, and this is why you need to get comfortable with New World's dodge mechanics. Depending on how heavy your equipment is though, how you utilize the dodge move will vary, and you'll also unlock some handy passive bonuses. Your equip load is a number that fluctuates between 0 and 50 based on how much and what type of gear you have equipped. If it's below 13, your load will be light and your dodge will be a long distance roll. You'll also deal 20% more damage and get 20% extra healing. If it's over 13 but less than 23, you'll do a quick hop dodge instead of a roll, and you'll deal 10% bonus damage and healing, and crowd control debuffs you apply last 10% longer. If your equip load is more than 23, you'll be considered heavy, and your dodge will be a very small and slow sidestep. It's the least capable dodge in the game. However, your block stability is increased by 15%, hint hint, and your crowd control debuffs last 20% longer. While running around Aeternum, charting new paths, and taking out corrupted enemies, pay attention to the color of the sky. If the sky goes dark with a faint glow of red, check your level. If you're under 25, and especially if you're just starting out, you should just, run. You've stumbled into an infested world event, which are extremely challenging, hence why the recommended level is 25. And if you're under-leveled, you can, and almost definitely will, get killed by a single hit. There are plenty of rewards to earn from these world events though, so when you're at the appropriate level, have at it. Before we wrap up, here are a couple of quick final tips. The game remembers your exact location. When you're done playing, simply quit out. When you return, you'll be dropped right back to the location you last left off. Also, quest items don't take up actual inventory space. Sure, they'll appear in your inventory, but fortunately, they don't actually take up any of that sweet, precious total weight you can carry. Finally, be sure to spend some time leveling up a rapier enough to earn the Fleisch ability. Why? First off, look at that, it's sick. Also, it's a really good move, great for damaging multiple enemies at once, and it can even be used to put some distance between yourself and a crowd if you find yourself overwhelmed. Hopefully this has you feeling a bit more comfortable before your expedition to Aeternum officially begins. Be sure to check out our New World guide for more tips and tricks, detailed walkthroughs, answers to all your questions, and more. And for all of your other video game needs, you're already in the right place, IGN.